quiet moments before the world wakes up, there's a place where pain meets peace, where every breath feels like a prayer and grief stands still. We carry the weight of what was and search for meaning in the smallest things. And sometimes all it takes is one moment to remind us we're still here, still healing.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Grief Let's Talk About It podcast. You guys know who it is. This is Tony Lynch. I'm the host of this podcast. And yes, we are your number one podcast. We bring you stories around death, dying, and grief, all the messiness that comes in between, with some amazing people out here doing some amazing things, changing people's lives one heartbeat at a time. Now, as always, this is a live stream. So if this is your first time tuning in, head on over to the YouTube channel. Hit that subscribe button, hit that bell notification, so you'll be notified every time that we drop a new episode. And most importantly, if you have any questions or comments, please put them in the comment section. We'll be sure to answer them as we go. One other thing before I bring on my guest. This is for educational purposes only. Now, without further ado, guys, help me welcome my guest, Dr. D, to the show. Dr. D, hi.
Hi, how are you? It's nice to see you.
Same here. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Yes. Ever since our last conversation, I was like, this is going to be awesome. I knew it too.
Yes.
So before we get started, introduce yourself to the audience. So tell people who you are, where you're from, and about the work that you do.
Absolutely. Well, hello, everyone. My full name is Reverend Dr. Darlene Williams, but I go by Dr. D. I am in New York City, and I am a holistic provider of grief coaching, economic coaching, executive leadership coaching, but I focus on healing and recovery. And I say healing, recovery, and restoration, not only for individuals who have gone through grief and loss, but I label it any trauma, any life challenge that has hindered your ability to move forward and keep you bound. We work with individuals. We work with leaders while grieving, leaders while bleeding, and we work with youth as well. I'm an executive leader with over 30 years of experience working in New York City government, nonprofit organizations as president and CEO, but I'm also an author of over 11 books. I'm a minister in my house of worship, and I think my favorite title, one of my favorite titles, is I'm the daughter of the late Robert Brown Jr. and Betty Jean Brown, a mother, a grandmother, and a wife.
Wow. See, that is truly impressive. Truly impressive. Now let's talk about your work a little bit, right? How is, say for instance, if a Tony was to come to you, right? What can I expect working with Dr. D in the amazing work that you do?
Yeah, great question, because I say there are so many coaches out there, right? There are a lot of people who are providing services. So I specialize in working with individuals who have gone through trauma, but I tend to say I don't just teach grief and healing and loss, I've lived it. So because I've lived it and I'm still going through the journey, I feel that I'm blessed to have the opportunity to help individuals along their journey. Through one of my earlier books, which was published in 2014, which was the Freedom Positioning System, I developed a framework, and that framework takes you through 10 steps of different things that keep you bound and keep you from being free. So we've taken this framework and we've made it our signature foundation that we use to help people through their process. So you can expect a strong, faith-based, sensitive, customized program for you that really focuses on identifying those areas of grief, whether they're hidden or apparent, but also taking you through the journey at your pace, which I think is very important.
I love that. I definitely love that, because I think for me, myself, when I think about grief, it's such a vast array of different lanes that you can go down. It's really important to be able to adapt something that can fit into almost most of the categories that go through there.
Yes.
Now, when you talk about your own experience, can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, a little bit. So I want to say over the past, this is 2025. So probably over the past 8 years, we have lost 12 members of our family who have transitioned. Most recently, my mother, my father, and my sister all passed within a year and a half of each other. And that has been over since 2019. My father passed in 2019. My mother passed in January 2022. She actually got sick a year and a half after his passing. And then my sister just passed last February of 2024. Um, so I essentially lost my entire childhood household within a 5 year period. My husband and I just came back from a trip to Ghana, West Africa, and we did a naming ceremony. And I never heard it phrased this way, but at the naming ceremony, when the chief, they washed our feet for us before the ceremony, and he said to me before he prayed, he said, "Your entire family left you alone." And when he said that to me, and it's 5 years later, after my father's passing, a year and a half after my sister, and that was the first time I heard it that way. And that's essentially what happened. So I went on my journey in 2014 in my first book to really start to share just different things that happen as it relates to trauma. But after the passing of my family, I took it a step further, and I, established this book, Father, Mother, Sister, My Grief But God, Moving Forward Without Pieces of My Heart. And it's a workbook that goes with this book. And the book explains my journey of, really essentially being on this earth so rapidly without everyone. And it's been challenging. It's been, I think challenging is even a word that gives it an understatement, because you know very well, and your audience knows, grief is a journey. It's a journey, and it comes in waves. So I've been going out with the book, and sharing my story of survival, with individuals. I've been helping houses of worship establish grief ministries. We're actually establishing one at my church now, and helping people to identify who and how we want to support and serve. Been doing a lot of speaking engagements about grief, but also through my coaching practice, people have been reaching out to me and just either asking for coaching, asking for support, but also directing them to psychologists and grief counselors if they need a higher level of support, which I think is important. My grief therapist, I still see her. And she's the one who really helped me establish my grief coaching business. And now it's gone a step further. We have now established a certified grief coaching program to help individuals who want to be grief coaches. So we're really working with individuals because it's important. I strongly believe lived experience is the best practice. I have 5 degrees up into my doctorate, but nothing beats lived experience.
Yes, I totally agree. Totally agree. That was one of the challenges when I experienced one of my harder losses. Finding somebody I could talk to. They sent me someone, and when you're in the early stages of grief, things like that, you want somebody that can relate to what you're going through. Even in the later stages of grief, right? You still want somebody that can still relate to what you're going through and be able to guide you through it, because there's all these little twists and turns that no one really ever expects. And it grows the way you grow, right? As you begin to heal, as you begin to accept the reality that you now are faced with without your loved ones.
Yeah.
People don't understand. Your world changes. Like the way that you see people, the way that you see life really honestly changes. And you can go either which way with it. And sometimes you will go both ways, right? Because it switches so much. It's really hard to stay in mind frame of what's next, or
Yeah.
get out of the mind frame of what's next, right? Survival mode. What are your
Yeah.
thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's so critical, and that's one reason why we established this grief coaching program. But before I tell you a little bit more about that, what you said is so key because you can go either way, right? You're in survival mode, but you need guidance as to how to survive and what to
Yeah.
do. And one thing that people forget about are the children, right? You're going through the grief process, but you're not going through it alone. Everyone who's attached to you is also going through that process in some sense, right? At their level of understanding with you. So in the book, Father, Mother, Sister, My Grief for God, I have a chapter in here about spouses and partners and how your spouses and partners can support you or not in the process. And if they're not able to support you, what that looks like and what steps to take. But for the children, I recently, just this year in July, released a children's book series because I wanted to make sure that we had a space for children to focus on their grief and their trauma and the different things they go through, right? Because it looks different for everyone. And then I also wanted to make sure that the books were for our children. So you'll see I have it's a Joy in the Journey series. And the series speaks about how you can still have joy in the journey. Sometimes we think we feel guilty because we'll have a day where we're smiling or a day where we're laughing. And it's how can I have joy when my loved one is no longer here? So I labeled the series Joy in the Journey. And we have a Facebook group, and we help people see how that's possible. So this is Maya and the map of me, and corresponding Corey and the map of me. And these are for our youth in kindergarten to about fourth grade. And it takes these youth through different situations that they go through related to trauma and life challenges. And the characters, they have help, they have support in understanding their situation. I'm not going to give the book away, but it's related to grief and loss. Then for our middle schoolers, we have Brandon and we have Jada. And if you see these covers, these are for our children, Brandon and Jada. And these characters go through a certain situation as well. And these are for our middle schoolers, probably fifth grade to about eighth grade. And we know high school is a special place. When you get to high school, it's, I'm a teenager. I'm going through different things that I may or may not want to talk about. I'm thinking about what's going to happen after I finish high school. So I wanted to make sure that we focus on our high schoolers. So we have Elijah and Leah, and these are our high school students, taking them through a change in grief and trauma. And then I have a book focused on when you're in college, and it's called Rooted and Rising. And it's a journal for our high school, our college students when they're away from home or when you're leaving home and you may not be going to college, but also it takes you through just that identity. And, for those who have gone away to school, that can be traumatic, especially if there are situations at home related to grief that you've gone through. So these books are all available on Amazon, or through my website, and I'll put a couple of links in the chat for your listeners. But it focuses on the children. To answer your other question, our grief coaching certification program was specially designed to align with exactly what you just said. It takes a special person to understand someone's grief and to really listen intently for the point of support and helping. And there's so many coaching programs right now, but it's been hard for me to locate a coaching program where everyone is focused on the same thing. Everyone is focused on learning how to help someone through grief and trauma. So we established the Restoring Bountiful Joy Grief Certification Coaching Program, where we're only accepting people who want to be coaches related to grief and trauma. So when you're on that Zoom call, all the questions that people are asking is all about the same topic. And I think that's going to be so valuable because you'll be able to learn from each other. You'll develop this network, like the networks that you have, to help each other through grief and trauma. But also, you're getting certified in a support system with like-minded people to move forward. So I'll put the link to that. Is coming up soon if anyone in your audience is interested.
Yeah, most definitely. Put it in the chat so people can go and check that out as well. I also have your information for it as well in that you sent over there to me, I believe.
Oh, yes.
Okay, so yeah, that is also in the YouTube channel as well. So anybody looking on the YouTube channel, go there. That information is there. I want you guys to go check that out,
Yes.
especially if you have kids and things like that. Which is, I find that fascinating, right? Because as someone, that work with majority men, although I do educate other, women and others in how to hold space with men when we grieve, and what does that look like, right? So it's always I love doing that because I find it. Okay, I'm gonna have to take it out of here real quick. Let me do this. Especially when it comes down to children.
Yes.
Because they're the ones who people really just shy away from speaking with because they think that the kid don't understand, or maybe they go, this is this is a grown up thing, and they don't want the kids to be exposed to it,
Right.
and not understanding that these children are exposed to it, and there's a conversation that needs to be had. Misunderstood. So education is key.
Key.
And the reason why I say that is because, and this is only my thoughts, and I could be wrong about this, but children have a different way of expressing themselves when they are hurting.
Yeah.
And sometimes it can be misunderstood as someone throwing a temper tantrum, or maybe someone being clingy or needy or something like that. Now I could be wrong, but what are your thoughts about that, and what do you think should be the biggest things that adults should understand about children and how they deal with grief?
Yeah. No, you're absolutely correct. Because children, they display their feelings differently, and we need to pay attention to our children when they're talking to us. I have two grandchildren, a 6-year-old and one that's almost 1 years old. And I always tell my son and my daughter-in-law, when he's crying and he doesn't want to be with someone, let him not be with them, right? Because children are very sensitive, and they understand the environment around them. So we think that they can't pick up on signals, or they don't know what's happening with us. Then we're wrong, because they do. And then they show that in different ways. So I would really say to adults that we need to really just stop and take a pause and listen to our children, pay attention to them. If we see that they're behaving differently than they normally are, try to have a conversation with them. If we see that they're a little standoffish, maybe they don't want to talk to us, then find help. Find someone that they do want to talk to. You may not have to go out and get professional help right away, but if there's a family member, if there's a friend, if there's someone in your community or in your network that your child relates to, ask for assistance, to have that conversation. It takes a village to raise a child, right? We should never have so much pride or be too private where we don't want to seek help from someone else that may be able to get to our child, and we can't. That's the point of having a supportive community that you trust, because you'd rather your child talk to somebody than nobody.
That's very true. And I think that's universal across the board when we speak of the children going through schools, everywhere from elementary all the way up to high school and college, et cetera, right? It's always good to have a community that you can relate to, because I think it helps with building more of a trust. And it helps lower those walls, right? And when you know that someone has gone through something similar, the possibilities of them taking what you're saying and trying to hurt you with it goes down, right? And so you've been doing this for quite some time.
Yes.
I want to ask because I've been doing this 6 years, and I've seen some changes from the time when I started to where I am now, and I can only imagine the changes that you've seen from the time that you started till now. What are some of the major changes that you've seen in progression,
Mm.
and how can we improve in what we already do, adding to to the resources out there?
Yeah, that's such a good question because when you think about, mental health as a whole, um, it's always been looked at as a stigma, as taboo, something you don't want to talk about. And I always say there's no health without mental health. We can't move forward if we have mental health that's not addressed. And when I say mental health, it's not something that is negative. If something's wrong with your heart, you go see a cardiologist, right? If you have breathing issues, you go see your pulmonologist. If you have asthma, so it should be the same thing if our heart hurts, if something's wrong mentally where we need assistance. So I think we've come a long way from where we used to be as far as progression. To answer your question related to addressing grief and trauma, we see more resources. We see counselors that are focused directly on grief and trauma and transition. I had someone call me the other day. They lost someone very elderly, and the person needs someone to talk to. I went to a homegoing service last week for a couple that was married 40, 50 years, and the wife is here, and the husband passed away, and she's asking for assistance. So we see more people requesting assistance, but it's still hard to find the right assistance that you need. It's still hard to find someone who may be a Christian counselor, someone, if you're looking for a male therapist in particular, a female therapist, if you're part of a different community group and you want someone that's culturally competent to you. So we still have a long way to go with making sure that we have diversity and accessibility to counselors focused on grief and loss. But I do believe that we have taken a step in the right direction, that we're getting more aware and accepting of grief and loss and speaking to someone. But I would like to see more accessibility and more promotion of just awareness of it.
Yes.
You see everything promoted on television, but do you see promotion in social media and on television and on the radio for grief counselors, for grief coaches? Which is why we established the grief certification program that we have for restoring bountiful joy, because there's a great need out there, particularly when you look at violence in our country. And every day, you can't turn on the news without seeing a shooting or without seeing a tragedy. We watch the tragedy and we're focused on the shooting, we're focused on the loss, we're focused on the fires, the forest fires, the car accident, everything that happens. But what about the person behind it? What about the people that were impacted? I'm one, when I pass by a car accident or we're stuck in traffic, you're in your car and people are like, oh my God, I'm in traffic, I'm going to be late. No, two things. One, God spared you from that accident and delayed you so you weren't in it. And two, what about the people that are involved in it? That's grief and trauma.
Mhm.
So we've come a long way, but we still have a long way to go.
You're absolutely right. I'm glad that you said that, right? Because to see everything progress the way that it has, I think we're always trying to come up with solutions so we can be better, effective in the areas that we do, or that we are, that we specialize in. And mental health is one of those things that no one really takes into consideration, or as you just said, I'm just repeating what you said, take into consideration the other people who are now affected by this, right? And my theory is, and it's just a theory, it's something, I don't know if it's I'm still working on it, but people become so involved in the individual trauma that they're experiencing because they're only seeing it from one side of the spectrum, right?
Right.
And a lot of people, when you're going through something like that, it becomes a very selfish thing. This is why I tell people grief is very selfish, right? Because it won't allow you, well, it becomes harder to think about what someone else is going through because of the way that it makes you feel,
Yes.
right? And it takes time. Takes time. It takes people to step in to help guide you through that mess, to begin to slow down and see and begin to put all the puzzle pieces together, right? Um, and I think a lot of that is too more a little bit tweaking the education, right? More realistic scenarios when you're getting your certification. So one of the things that I started doing, and I'm glad that you brought it up, was I'm looking to create an app to make things easier for people,
Yes.
right? You can go to the app, you can find whatever service that you want, no matter where you are in the world, whether it's a different country or, state, whatever. I think that'll actually help bring a part of a solution
Hey, well,
to that as well. But for those individuals who have a passion for um, helping people in grief, but don't really want to necessarily be a grief coach or a grief education, a educator. I can't even speak right now. I thought of something. I was like, what if we had a program out there called the grief, that help people become grief accomplices, right?
yeah,
People who can accompany you as you're walking through your grief, as you begin to grow, just a soundboard or something like that.
absolutely. It's like an ambassador, someone
Yeah,
that really can help you through the process, but they may not want to become a credentialized coach, but they
right.
want to know enough about the process of grief and loss to direct you, to guide you to a coach, to a counselor, to recognize when they're having conversations with you when you may need a higher level of care, or when you're going through a traumatic time in your grief journey and you need assistance now. That's really important. And I think an app would be amazing because we live on our phones now, right? So to have
Yes.
an app that can give you those resources right away when you need it, I think would be amazing. That's a great idea.
It's something else, right?
Yes,
Um, I got a question for you.
sure.
With the way that we see the influx of grief practitioners, trauma informed coaches, in a whole array of individuals that are really tied together in this field,
Hmm.
we see a lot of people come and go because they don't know how to brand or market themselves in this general area.
Right.
If someone was coming up in this field and was struggling, what would be a major tip, just one major tip that you would give them to help them plant their feet to begin to establish a foundation within this field industry?
Yeah, yeah, no, great question. And we teach that in the certification program. So I'm glad you asked that because that's one of the benefits of joining our program. One tip I would say is for those with live experience, don't be afraid to tell your story, because the more people can see that you're relatable, and people want hope, they want empowerment, they want inspiration, they want to see that they are not alone, and that if you can do it, I can too, right? And here is someone that can teach me the steps of how to help someone, how to get through this process, how to establish myself in my business, and see that you've been successful at it. So I would say don't be afraid to share your story, because in order to establish business and for people to feel comfortable talking to you, for people to feel like you can help them, they need to see you. They need to see you as a person. Sometimes we think we have to put on a different face for our business and show a different side of us. People want to be able to relate to you and know that you're human. So I try to be the same Dr. D everywhere I go. People see me. What you see is what you get, but it also helps with building that foundation of trust that you need with your clients. So that's the first thing I would say. And then I do want to add one other thing. My coach, so every coach needs a coach. So if you are a coach and no one is pouring into you, something's wrong. Because I like to say, my name's not Jesus, so I don't know everything. So we have to have people to pour into us. Um, so I would add one thing that my coach said to me was, if you're not displaying what you do every day in some way, whatever that way is for you, whether it's through YouTube, TikTok, social media, whatever method you're using to get your word out there, as an entrepreneur, you're not showing up for work. If you were showing up for a 9 to 5, you'd be going to that office every day and clocking in and people see you. So in the world of being an entrepreneur, in whatever method you use, if they don't see you every day, how are you going to establish your business? How are you going to establish a clientele if people don't know who you are? So they have to see you.
I like that, and I want to talk a little bit about approach, because in the day and age that we live in now, right? Everybody's on the phone, everybody's into video games, everybody's into different ways of absorbing information through electronics, right? And so one of the things I did or thought about was like, how do we reach the majority of people and still educate them by giving them something fun to do, right?
Yeah,
And so, and this is where, when I go in and I help people reestablish their business and things like that come with a different structure, I go, make it fun for people.
that's right.
Be creative, right? And I think what happens, and I could be wrong about this, but I think a lot of times people get so wrapped up into the singular motion of the path that they refuse to look at the outside and everything else that it has to offer you, right? The different opportunities. If you just dove deeper into it and said, "Wow, I wonder if I could do this, and if I did, what sort of impact would it have on other people?" So
Yes.
relation through creativity, like I thought, I'm creating a game called, I'm creating a game behind my graphic novel, so people can go in and go on different adventures, but also learn different things about grief, loss, and mental health, because it's sort of like your regular um, uh, it's like the regular games that they have out there nowadays, right? Just a little bit more educational and fun. So I think approach in your marketing needs to be able to cater to what people are doing now, right? But I don't know. That could be something.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I mean, for me, I would say we have to be all things to all people so we can reach the masses, right? Everyone learns differently. So just like I'm a teacher as well. I teach at several universities, undergrad and graduate level, and people in seminary. And I can't go to each class and teach the same way because the students are at different levels. So you want to make sure that we're able to do the same thing when it comes to grief and trauma, and that relates to how we get the message across. And you're so on target. It needs to be fun. It needs to be engaging. You're speaking to someone at one of the lowest levels of their life,
Mhm.
so they don't want to talk to you, and you are bringing them even lower from where they are. As a coach, as a counselor, you want to be encouraging. You want to give inspiration. You want to give hope. So make it fun and exciting. Be creative. Think about different methods for different cultures, because all your clients are not going to look like you. They're not going to all come from where you came from. So you need to educate yourself in what can I do? How can I structure this conversation? Or maybe it's not even a conversation, maybe it's an activity to get the message across, to help them and support them in a way where I can reach them today, but also have them come back tomorrow.
Mm. I love that. I love that. Which leads me to my next question. When what is one thing that you wish that people would strongly pay attention to getting into, well, what is one thing that you wish people would understand when they get into this new developing industry of grief, trauma, and mental health? One, And I'm gonna give mine first and see what you think about that. Then give me yours,
Mhm.
right? I say understanding what the true meaning is of holding space with someone. And what I mean by that, when someone invites you into their space, not only are you there to hold space with them, but you're there to be a visitor. Meaning, let them guide conversation. If they decide that they want to talk, allow them to talk. Do things so they don't have to focus on catering to you. So, say for instance, if Dr. D invited me to your home, and you needed somebody to talk to, first thing I'm doing is that I'm looking around to take away the distraction from what you're going through. So I may go as you're talking, and you may see me get up and go in your kitchen, start doing dishes and putting those away. Maybe going around grabbing clothes and throwing them in the laundry room while I'm still having a conversation with you. Bringing back a remote control and saying, "Hey, put something on TV that you want to watch," and I'm still talking with you. So that's one of the things that I really wish people would understand. Don't ever dictate the conversation between you and your client. Always allow them to be open and vulnerable to you, because that establishes a better foundation of trust.
Yeah, I love that. Not only because of what we're talking about, grief and loss, but just overall related to distractions. The worst thing in the world is for you to have a conversation with someone, and you're holding space, they're holding space for you, and you are distracted on your phone, paying attention to something else, not looking them eye to eye, half listening. They ask you a question and you don't even really know what they said. So you can't, paraphrase it. You can't, answer it completely because you weren't really listening. They will know that. So I agree with that. I would add that I would really want people in this space to understand that the level of pain that someone feels related to their grief is not only different for each person, but it's relative to them. Someone can have the same amount of pain and grief from losing their pet to losing a human being.
Yes.
And we cannot, as coaches in this field, judge that. And we should go into that conversation, like you said, allowing them to talk, but having an understanding that this pain they feel is real. And no matter what it is that they are grieving, grief is proof that you loved something or someone. And that thing that you loved is gone, or it's not accessible to you anymore. So that is for us to help our clients process in their journey. And I keep saying journey because the journey can take as long as it needs to take. I'll never forget in my journey when my mother transitioned in 2022. Someone said to me, "How long is it going to take? You need to clean out this apartment and give it back." We moved into that apartment in 1975. My father passed first, then my mother, and then my sister. You can imagine the life that was in that apartment of all the things. So it's going to take me however long it takes me to make sure that I treasure each thing in here and do with it what is appropriate. So I give that example because I really hope people understand the level that someone can be feeling related to pain when it comes to their grief, and go into that conversation where you're holding space with them in a way that's compassionate and understanding and empathetic. And if you're not able to do that, to be honest about that and allow them to have space with someone else.
I love that. Now, I got a question. Then go which way with this as well. How important is it for people to understand the different types of grief related to what people are going through? So, like we know people in hospice, right? Their family are already anticipatory grief, you know. And then there's going to be people that's going to complicate grief. I believe understanding what the different types of griefs and what they actually are related to helps a person understand how to be in that space with them, right? And it allows for a different sort of conversation to be had. Because I think normalizing conversations around death, dying, and grief needs to be something put out into the forefront. There should be no um, uncomfortableness to it,
Right.
right?
Right.
But I think, honestly, going back to what I said, I think understanding different types of grief it helps people navigate it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so funny you say that. So I said my church, I'm helping them establish a grief ministry. I'm actually leading the grief ministry. We're having our kickoff event on November 1st in New York City. And one of the panel discussions that we're having is we're going to have a moderated section of having the conversation related to grief and why people shy away from it, what people should talk about, how they should ensure that it's it's discussed so that people are prepared for it in every way that prepared what that looks like. Related to the different types of grief, we cover that in our grief certification program. But one thing I think is left out is hidden grief. And when you think about grief, sometimes most times we only look at when there's a loss of a person. But there's hidden grief that we're not, discussing, grief that we're not talking about, and it's still relative to that person and it's still significant. For example, if you've been on your job for 30 years and all of a sudden you leave your job for whatever reason and your job was your identity, you can grieve your job. You can grieve not having that component of your life. I had a client on a call. She went through a cancer situation and she had to have a double mastectomy. She said she was grieving the loss of her breast and she couldn't find a coach or a therapist to talk to her about grieving losing her body part. I had another client talk to me about her father passed away and she was grieving the loss of her father, but she was more so grieving the fact that she would not have her father to walk her down the aisle for her wedding. That was grief for her. So there are different forms of grief that may not be in the textbook that we see, that we learn. But when you're helping and supporting someone with grief, that's why I stress again, we have to understand that it's the feeling that that person has of loss. Grief is loss, no matter what that loss is. And as a coach and a counselor, we have to be open to that. I love what you said. They're allowing us to hold space with them. We have to hold that as sacred.
Yeah, be a visitor. I love that. I love that you brought up some of those facts as you was talking about it, the hidden grief, right? Because people never even expect that, right? And there was a couple of them. I started doing some table talks around these two. One, and this is the most difficult one that I find that people had was carrying with them, grieving someone that you wanted dead, right? That's people never really thought about that. It was like, what do you mean? I was like, think about the person who's been molested or abused their whole entire life, and then no one even knew about it. But yet, what I'm saying, you either see this individual on a day-to-day basis, or there's somebody within your family. But there's nothing that you can do. You can't say anything. Imagine what they're going through. But there's also another one that they I would like to dive to it, but grief addiction. There's people out there addicted to the feeling of grief, and not like the normal thing, but they're the ones that go to the funerals, and things like that. That are screaming and hooping and hollering, no matter who it is, right? They've taken on that identity of someone that has been impacted personally by it, and it has nothing to do with them.
Right. Yeah.
What about those two right there?
Yeah, that's so true because there are individuals who, just like someone can be addicted to, I'm just going to say addicted to drama, addicted to chaos, addicted to confusion. There are people that are addicted to grief. And it could be because of the hidden grief that we talked about and them not being able to grieve their own situation. There's something called transference, right? When we think about it from a clinical perspective, and they're attaching their grief that they weren't able to talk about, that they're masking onto other people's grief, and they're utilizing that in a way to get those feelings out, because those feelings have to come out. They have to come out eventually. So constantly going to funerals, being the person to show up and help everyone else through their grief journey, but you haven't really focused on your own, or you may not even know that that person had a journey, right? I had someone that I was working with, and she was at work every day. There were people in the department who went through grief and loss, and she was showing up for them. 2 months later, we found out that a close member of her family had passed away through this process, and no one ever knew, because she never really focused on her grief. So I'm glad you brought that up. That's a very good point. And those are all the things that, as you're becoming a grief coach, you need to be aware of. Because when you're opening your door to help individuals, you can't dictate who's coming in. You have to be prepared to listen, right? To be a visitor. But then also, I keep saying this, we don't want to do someone a disservice. If you're not equipped to support their situation, then your app will be able to help them find somebody who can.
Yeah. I'm glad that you brought that up because, like I said, starting this 6 years ago, almost 7 years ago now, one of the things that I noticed that people were doing, instead of trying to find help for someone that they was not equipped to do, they would hold on to them,
Yeah,
right? And then do more damage to these individuals than what needed to be done.
that's
And
right.
and then, and that was one of the things that really frustrated. Is like, look, if you're not capable of doing this, for doing a good service to this individual, let them go. Let them help them find a resource. And I think working together, collaborating, networking, growing everybody's organization realizes that, together we can do bigger and better things.
Right.
If once we begin to figure out how to work together and how to, maneuver people around, get them the support that they deserve, the right support, right? Um,
Absolutely. Because this is not a business to go into because you want to make money. This is a
no,
calling. This is a calling. It's a purpose. It's purpose driven. So you go into this field because you want to support individuals. The person that's holding on to someone, it's so disheartening because you're working with someone that you can't help. So you tend to think someone may be in it for the wrong reason. So I'm glad you said that. There's a network out there. Find someone else that can support this person so they can get the help they need, because grief and loss, you're dealing with the heart. You're dealing with emotions and feelings. And we want to be the best for the people that are hiring us to be the best for them.
yes, I love that. I love that. Now, I only have three more questions for you, Dr.
No
D.
problem.
Only three more for you. As we begin to wrap this up, I want to say first and foremost, thank you for having this beautiful conversation with me, sharing your journey, your work, and your knowledge with myself and the audience. Um, how can people find you?
Sure. So I am located on all social media channels under Dr. Darlene Williams or Darlene Brown Williams. So you can go on IG and look up DR. So it's usually DR Darlene Williams. On Facebook, Dr. Darlene Williams. I'm on YouTube. I'm on LinkedIn. But you can simply email me, and you have my information. We can put it in there, and it's right here also. drdarlene.williams.consulting.com is the website. But my email is drdee at drdarlenewilliamsconsulting.com.
Most definitely. And for those that are interested in the grief certification program, that's the information up on the screen. Just tap on it, go there, and go in there and check it out. But also, if you have, again, as I said before, if you have children, or Dr. D has resources for you. Go there, go to Amazon, grab the book, and educate yourself. Education is key to everything in helping us navigate this messy world of grief, trauma, and mental health. Now, my next question for Dr. D would be: if Dr. D had a superpower, what would it be?
Superpower. And I say that word a lot. So it's funny you asked that question. My superpower, I really, it's just become apparent very much lately in the past, I want to say decade. My superpower is being able to have a conversation with someone and really hone in and discern what they need and how I can be supportive and guide them in the right direction. I am really able to just, I think I listen to support and listen to learn, so that when someone's speaking to me, I can feel them. And from being able to feel them, I can sense maybe something that they're not saying, or something that they're struggling with. But in having that superpower and that gift of discernment, so to say, in my spiritual lens, I would say, I am able to direct them in a way that helps them to move forward. In my professional career, I've had so many staff members and people that I've worked with, and I've been able to help them elevate themselves and move forward and empower them to take the next step of progression from conversations and coaching from a leadership perspective. That building that into my grief coaching and my life coaching, it has helped me across both spectrums. So it's kind of hard to separate the executive from the healing and restoration, because that superpower of being able to be in tune with people is not only in grief and loss, it's in the individual level, if that makes sense.
No, it makes perfect sense. Makes perfect sense. And I think that's a beautiful superpower right there. And I think most of us that are out here striving to be better, we still fine tuning those different areas to make us more effective in what we do and help us understand more of what is required of us in what we provide to the people in our communities. One more question for you.
Sure.
If you could leave the audience with something, what would you leave them with?
I should have known that would be the last question, because in my podcast is what I ask people. I think ahead of time. I would say have hope. You are not alone. When you lose hope, that can be a lonely place. It can be isolating. And we are in this world in community with other people. So we're not meant to be by ourselves. So I would say, no matter what you are going through, no matter what is happening, to have hope, know that there's someone out there who can support you, you can connect with, and to keep pressing forward, to just keep pressing forward.
Definitely. I want to say to the chats as well, thank you guys for showing up as always. And I want to again thank my guest for being here today, Dr. D. Go there and check her out. The information is in the YouTube channel. As a matter of fact, before I let you go, because you never did tell people how they can find your YouTube channel.
Oh yes. So that's right. Thank you so much. So our podcast, The Debrief with Dr. D, real talk, real leadership, real strategy, one insight at a time. So our YouTube channel is The Debrief, TheDeebrief with Dr. D. So our YouTube channel, and I think you have that. If not,
I do. I wanted to make sure you let me know that, because you talked about it. But you did drop the link, so I had to make sure you did that.
Yes. Upload a new podcast every Tuesday. We have great conversations just like this one with people who provide inspiration and hope about grief and loss, about restoration, and just about connection. And this most recent episodes that are coming up, we have a lot of people who have gone through different things, but they have survived and they are thriving. And the messages of hope are so strong. So the debrief with Dr. D on YouTube, check it out.
Nice, nice, nice. And
Thank
for
you.
everyone else out there, I want to say thank you for always tuning in. Hopefully, and we're going to keep bringing these conversations to you guys. I'm going to be on Dr. D's show as well, so go over there and check it out. Go over there and show that love. Go and check out those books as well. Go check out on her social media. She be dropping gems every day, as well as a whole lot of people out there. So, and as always, I always tell people, go out there. Don't be afraid to bounce around until you find what you want. You
That's
know, there's a lot of resources out there. But it's important for you to find exactly what you're looking for. And once you get what you need from there, don't be afraid to go to something else, because as you begin to heal, your needs are going to change as well. Right. And with that being said, for everyone who's been tuning in the chats, thank you for that. Thank you guys for always allowing me to keep bringing these amazing conversations to you guys and always supporting the channel. And as always, I am Tony Lynch. We're going to close this one out. We're going to see you guys in the next one. But most importantly, I want to give you guys an update. Every Tuesday and Thursday, go check out the Connect Work. It's another show that I do. And we're out there just 5 and early in the morning. It's 10 a.m. Mountain Time, 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Pacific. Come check it out. It is another live stream every Tuesday and Thursday morning. And get some laughs in and enjoy a great conversation. With that being said, guys, we are out. We're going to see you guys in the next one. As always, if you're not doing it, go out there and make sure you're making memories with the people that you love, because tomorrow is not promised to you. And with that being said, we are out. Love you. Have an amazing day.
Take care. Bye bye.